teacher. He might ask you a question. I learned that.
That was Dad's dad. He sit in the back of the classroom. So
Hi.
Okay, good morning. It's Wednesday, January 2nd, Parsha Shmos. So, this is, what's the most famous thing that happened in this week's Parsha?
Paro?
The most important thing, the most famous thing, the thing that we as a nation identify with more than almost anything else. Moses was born. Moshe Rabbeinu was born in this week's Parsha. Okay? And he was called Moshe. Why was he called Moshe?
Because he took it from
the water. And I heard from Rabbi Ever, do you remember what he said about Mayim? I don't know if you were there at the time. If you there's different ways of doing gematrias. We know the simple way. An aleph is 1, a beis is 2, a gimel is 3. But there's also what we call a cumulative. There's something what we call a cumulative gematria. So aleph would be 1. How much would beis be? Beis would be 3. Why? Because it add the 1 and 2. That's 3. Gimel would be
5.
6.
3.
The 1, the 2, and the 3. 6.
Yes.
Okay, what would Dalet be? Good morning. What would Dalet be? Dalet would be 10. And so on and so forth, okay? So if you take a look at the word Mayim, and you keep doing that, so I'm going to do it very quickly. Tad, you'll go home, you'll take 3-4 months, you'll figure it out.
This looks weird.
So Dalet is 10, and Hey would be 15. Okay, let's do it in English so you know.
Okay.
So 5 would be 15, Vav would be 21, 7 would make it 28, and 8 would make it 36, and 9 would make it 45, and 10 would be 55. So Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dal, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes, you add it up, that would be 55. So 10 would be 55. And then if you get to the Mem, that would be 145, because you'd add all the ones. All the, everything up until then. So if you look at Mayim, so how much is the first Mem? That would be 145. And then you look at the Yud, which is 10, which I told you was 55. So 145 and 55 is 200. And then the other Mem at the end would be another 145. Would be 345. And Moshe is 345. In regular. Because the Mem is 40, the Shin is 300, and the Hey is 5. So the Torah says that why do we call him Mayim? Because Kimina Mayim Mashasu. We pulled it out of water, and we pull out of water 345 if we add up. So now you get. Now this is, again, I always like to say that this is not just something that's cute, even though it is, but you can't do that with anything. Take Columbus, take Kennedy, take Tad. It won't work. Well, maybe with Tad it'll work, but
I'm in the Torah.
I saw you actually. Next time, put some clothes on. You were there all the way in the beginning before people were ashamed. Anyway, so it's very interesting about Moshe.
That is really neat. Wow.
The Chassam Sofer asked the question. Every rabbi forever, from the beginning of time practically, is called Rabbi this, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Schneerson, Rabbi, everything is Rabbi. With Moshe, it's the opposite. It's Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe a Rabbi. Why is it reversed? You ever thought about that?
But don't they say...
of course not.
Avram Avinu?
No, Avinu means our father.
Oh,
but when we use the term Rabbi, the title...
It usually goes first. Okay.
We usually goes first. Here, we give the title afterwards. Okay? And the answer is...
The master of the rabbis.
Yeah, something like that. That everybody else was a rabbi because of Moshe. Because Moshe gave the Torah, they studied, they became a rabbi. So they are a rabbi because Moshe had the Torah before it was even given. So he was Moshe, and afterwards he got the Torah, but he didn't need the Torah to become a rabbi, so he was Moshe in itself. Okay. There's another very interesting gematria, and that's what I wanted to talk about today, is that where it says in the Parsha, you want to pass me the Chumash? When it said, we have a concept that we say it in davening in one of the psalms, that Hashem is with us in our suffering. That when we suffer, Hashem suffers. Now, the Eila Shemos B'nai is first verse in Shemos. The Eila Shemos B'nai is, these are the names of the Haboim who came Mitzrayim to Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim ends whenever we have a word, a noun that ends with a hey, it's equivalent to that hey means two. Okay. So instead of saying to le Mitzrayim, to Mitzrayim or El Mitzrayim, we ended with a hey. So it says the same in Parshas Vayeshev. It says Yaakov went to Charan. It should have said he went to Charan. Right. But when it says Charan with a hey at the end, that means to the place. Right. So the same thing, Mitzrayim means to. Now it's interesting that the Torah used this way. Almost every place else in the Torah it says LeMitzrayim, to Mitzrayim. Here it says Mitzrayim. It uses that way of spelling it, because by spelling it this way, it's 385. And as most people know, sure do you know, Tad, what else?
Close to.
Yeah, you see, people, when Jackie Mason used to give shows, he still does, people would hesitate to sit in the front seat because he'd pick on them, you know. Mm-hmm. So Mitzrayim was 385, and as I said, we went to Egypt, and we had our 210 years of suffering there, and who was there with us? The Shechina. Right. Shechina, right. And Shechina is 385. So
I see. So
and as Jews, we emulate Hashem, and when one of our brethren are in trouble, we should all be concerned. And it's interesting where this is brought out also in this week's parsha. You know, there are two places in the Torah where somebody had a child, and they had to set aside, they had to like sort of dispose of the child. We have it in this week's parsha because Paro ordered all the males to be thrown away. So they took the child and they put it in the sea, and what happened? Miriam came, and there was a miracle that happened, that they say she stretched out, you know, that Paro's daughter came and she stretched out the hand and was able to save the child. But the sister did not know. Miriam did not know that she was going to be saved. But what does the Torah say?
she was just watching.
And she was just watching.
Right.
And what does it say? And by Teitzav Achosa Merachog, her sister, Moshe Rabbeinu's sister, stood from afar, Ladeo, to know Ma Ye'osalo, what's going to be with him. She knew what was going to be him. He was going to die. You know, I mean, she had no way of knowing that he would be saved. And it says, in fact, it says not only was Miriam there, Aaron was there also, the brother. You know, Aaron was older. And he was there also because the Baal HaTurim says an amazing gematria. It says that the child was crying, V'hinei nar bocha. It says that Paro's daughter opened up the casket and she saw that a child there, and it says she saw the child, and then it says V'hinei nar bocha, and the child was crying. Why doesn't it say he saw the child cry?
Right.
Okay,
right.
So it sort of repeats it. So he says that V'hinei nar bocha is not referring to the child Moshe. Oh. It's talking about his little 3-year-old older brother was crying also. So she saw the child, right, and the little child was crying. And lo and behold, V'hinei nar bocha is gematria exactly Aaron HaKohen.
Oh wow!
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So we see again. We don't find that in War and Peace or in Court Noise Complaint either.
This is to the second gematria, or just
No, regular straight.
gematria?
It's all regular gematria. Okay? Straight gematria.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
So was he crying because he was?
He was crying because,
Happy that-
happy,
or he was just crying
but the
because he was
point
crying?
is, he was there.
Right.
He was concerned what would happen. Now, I said there were two places where something like this happened. Does anybody know the other place?
And Avram said, Nishma.
Exactly.
And he said,
Benny, you're on the ball today. When Avram sent out when Avram sent out Hagar with if I can find it.
Because he was going back, I saw
Right. But look,
he gave me a hint.
but look what it
He was
says.
going forward, I would think of somebody else.
that is so cool. I just can't believe it.
But look at the words it says.
It's so amazing. So amazing.
So he took the child. Noah was here last year.
2 years ago, wasn't it?
Anyway, it says that she sent away. She put the child in the forest somewhere, maybe also by the water. And it says that she left him there because she did not want to see what would happen to him. Oh, I wish I could find that. Let's see, did I write down the place where it was? Maybe over here. Here it is. Okay. Look what it says. So Abraham awoke early in the morning, took the bread and skin and water, and gave them to Hagar. He placed them on her shoulder along with the boy and sent her off. When the water of the skin was consumed, she cast off the boy beneath one of the trees. She herself, Hagar, went and sat down at a distance, some bow shots away. It means a distance away. For she said, let me not see the death of the child.
Right.
So she did not want to see the outcome, what was going to happen.
Right.
And that's the difference between a Jewish person and this is the mother. And the mother says, I don't want to see what the end result is going to be with my child.
Right.
And which is in total contrast to what Miriam and her brother did, that they went to see what would be the outcome. Even though the outcome was not going to be a good one according to the natural order of things, nevertheless,
They
would believe. You know, it's pointed out by somebody called Reb Simcha Zissel. He points out something very interesting, that, you know, from this week's Parsha, Shemos, where Moshe Rabbeinu was born, and until the end of the Torah, where he dies, you know, it's all about Moshe. Everything is Moshe. We know very little about Moshe's. You know, the first time he makes an appearance on the scene is when he goes before Paro, when he's 80 years old. What do we know about him from the time he was born? Okay, he was born in the Parsha. What do we know about him until then? We know 4 things about him. The Torah recites 4 things about him. The first one is when he saw the fire by the burning bush. Okay, so that's when God revealed to him, and that's when he realized.
Before that,
no, that was the first one. Okay. Huh?
When he saw two.
No, I think that happened afterwards.
No.
Okay. So maybe that was the end. But the 3 other things besides that, and that was God's revelation to him. But the 3 other things about Moshe was, the first one was when he saw an Egyptian hitting a Jew,
Right.
and he was concerned. And he did what he had to do. The next one was... the next one was when he saw 2 Jews fighting, and he went over to me and says, why are you hitting your brother? And that's where the other guy says, what are you going to do? You're going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian? You know, but nevertheless, he was concerned of the fate of somebody else. So that's the second time he was concerned. And the third one was, and that's how he found his wife, when he saw the daughters of Yisro, they were having a hard time with the well and everything, and he went and he was concerned and he tried to help them and all that. So that's what we know about Moshe Rabbeinu, and all these things is exactly what we were talking about before, that he was being concerned about somebody else, not necessarily always about somebody Jewish, but just being concerned about another human being and
5 more minutes, 4 minutes.
4 more minutes. Okay, so there's a very sad in a way story. You heard of Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel? He was the Rosh Yeshiva of Mir Yeshiva. The Mir Yeshiva is one of the largest yeshivas in the world in Israel, and the Rosh Yeshiva passed away this year. So there's a famous story where some Americans came to him to get a blessing, and he was already quite ill and he didn't have much time. But when they walked in, he asked them a question: "What's the lesson of the Holocaust? What lesson did Hashem teach us from the Holocaust?" So, there were two businessmen. One person says, "The lesson of the Holocaust is that we shall never forget," and the other person says, "You don't have to bow before me. Just slip me a few bucks. That would be good enough." The other thing. Good morning. The other person says the lesson is that we'll stand up. We should stand up and fight for what we believe in. And each one gave something like that of a lesson. And then he said, "Gentlemen, you have it all wrong." The lesson is that, he says, when they jammed all those Jews into those cattle cars, and it was freezing and everything, and they threw in the ratio of blankets they put in was one blanket for every six people. So what did that person who got the blanket do? Did he cover himself up and forget about his other 5 Jews? He says no. He pushed it onto the other people. Come on, everybody. He's part of it. Everybody was willing to help out that's the lesson. That in the worst of times, as Jews, we rise to the occasion. It brings out the best of us, and that's basically the lesson that we should learn. All the time. That
still the Jewish people number one in doing chesed.
Right, and that's our trademark. That's our trademark.
Most of the hospitals built by Jewish people. New York City.
Okay. Now since we have another 2 minutes, Rabbi Fox said something this week. He says that there are 3 things in the Torah that are referred to as signs. Shabbos is considered a sign, and Milah, circumcision, is considered a sign, and the other thing is tefillin. When we put on tefillin, it's considered a sign. Now, why don't we? This is just my wife likes when I put in a drop of halacha and everything. So one of tefillin, when we put on, is a sign. Why don't we put on tefillin on Shabbos? Because we always have to have 2 witnesses, 2 signs that we're Jews. So on Shabbos we have the circumcision and we have Shabbos. So we don't need the tefillin. Okay? Now, so there's an interesting halacha. We don't paskin that way. That's brought down. There's a halacha that if somebody dies when you're circumcised, and then another brother dies and circumcised, you don't circumcise the third boy.
You were telling us this the other day.
Because it's it's a skana,
Right.
So it's brought down that somebody who's not circumcised would have to put on tefillin on Shabbos because he's missing that sign, and you always need 2 signs. So even on Shabbos he would have to wear tefillin. We don't pass in that way, but it's just an interesting thing that's brought down. Okay, have a good day.
Or something.